Jason, good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
You
Alex Alexander.
you were just teaching me all about the geography of France, which you're currently based in.
Yeah, south of France, right in the middle. Nice, hot and sunny, lovely food, great wine, cheese. Life's good.
Is that where you were born, or is that the destination
No,
of
I was
choice?
born in cold, rainy Yorkshire in the north of England.
All right.
Brought up in lonely moorlands and spent my childhood under the rain in the snow, living a very lonely life. And then moved to France and became French.
Well, I'm sure they miss you in, the colder weather parts of the
Well,
world.
I think they're probably glad I'm gone.
Well, Jason, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself? You've got, the big Google moniker behind you, but tell us what you do and what it is you've been up to over the last handful of years.
Yeah, well, the Google thing behind me is actually a little bit out of date now because it's Google and ChatGPT. We help entrepreneurs, business owners get their personal brand perfect in Google and AI like ChatGPT.
Mm,
This is what we call the Brand SERP, the search engine results page for your name, your personal brand name.
hmm
And then ChatGPT, it would be called an AI Résumé. And what it says about you to your bottom of funnel audience is, in my opinion, fundamentally important to your business.
So you work to help brands. I'm sure you probably started on the Google side, right?
Yeah. So it starts on Google. That was 10 years ago. You were saying you've been in business 11 years. We've been in business 10.
There you go.
We started optimizing the results for the people. Then we started building knowledge panels, which is this picture box here, the factual information Google has.
Yep.
And that's neatly segued into AI assistive engines like ChatGPT. And over the years, I've built up a data set of 9.4 billion data points covering 70 million brands and a million entrepreneurs. We have detailed information about them, of their digital footprint online. And we use that data to understand how Google and ChatGPT and Perplexity think and how we can, let's say, manipulate what they then say about you.
Huh. Interesting. All right. Well, take me back. I'm reading in your bio. You started your first company in 1991. Is that right? So
Yeah.
you've been in business a long time.
Yeah, and the story, kind of from the perspective of what I do today, is quite interesting because I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've had three successful companies, over 60 years in business between them.
Jeez.
They're all still open, profitable, and running. I'm just not running the first two. I sold them on to other people. The business partners took them over.
Hmm.
And so if I put it like that, you say, oh, great, okay, this guy's a really serious businessman who's managed a career with these successful businesses, first in music publishing, then in ed tech and entertainment for children, and now in digital brand management, digital brand intelligence. But if I told the story differently, you'd get a completely different perspective of me.
Well,
Because the music publishing company called WTPL Music, I created in France. But I created the company because I was in a band and we wanted to get signed by a major label and we wanted to tour and get gigs and play huge stadiums like you do when you're that age.
mhm.
But nobody would sign us. So I just created a company to do it myself.
Okay. So take me through the landscape at that point in time. Like, what was your educational level at that point? Did you understand anything about business? Did you even understand you were starting a business? Because I've heard that from entrepreneurs. They're like, I didn't even realize I was doing a business. I was just kind of doing this thing.
Well, in fact, I needed a legal framework to record the album and then get it into the record shops. So
Okay.
I needed to be able to invoice people. And I understood that even as a musician playing in the street in Paris, which was what we was doing at the time, we needed a legal structure in order to be able to produce and sell a record.
hmm
And then also when I was asking to play gigs, I would ask, we can come and play. It will cost you what at the time 2,000, 3,000 francs. And then the bar owner or the club owner or the festival organizer would say, okay, who am I paying? And if they paid me directly, it's illegal.
Oh,
Or it turns in, well, at the time, you didn't have the status of being a freelancer without any kind of legal structure behind you an individual in France.
so you would have to have like a company in France to like invoice someone? Am I kind of
Well,
hearing
you
that
would have to
correctly?
register as a freelancer, at which point you
I
pay
see.
50% tax on everything. And that's just ridiculous
Interesting. So, I
because it
mean,
becomes personal income that you then have to declare through a system that is very, very heavily taxed.
yeah, I mean, in the United States, it's a lot of, I mean, I guess it's probably a lot of countries, just a lot of the trust system. It's like if I go and I paint my buddy's house and I charge him $2,000, the government just like trusts that, hey, you'll report that $2,000 in income. You don't have to become anything. They call it a sole proprietor. I'm sure I'm telling you something you know,
Yeah.
but it's just like you have an automatic designation that if you aren't registered as a business,
Oh,
you're a sole proprietor. So
no, there's a registration process to go through in France. It's now much easier, but at the time it was very difficult. But the other thing is that the companies, if I wanted to put records into a distribution network, I would have to get another company to put it into the distribution network, and it was WMD. And they needed me to invoice them for the sales that they were making for me.
mm,
So I had to create a company. I created a company in order to be able to pursue my dream career as a musician. So my initial approach was say, well, I'm a musician who happens to own a company
right.
rather than an entrepreneur who happens to be a musician.
Right. A lot of creatives don't. I just had someone on the podcast like 2 weeks ago. He was just talking about how creatives really struggle with business. That
Yeah.
they
Well, I had
want to
a,
do the creative part, and that's where
well,
their
I had a
skill
degree
set.
in economics,
Well,
so I
that
wasn't
probably helps.
completely, yeah.
Yeah.
But what I found, in fact, there were 5 people in the band at the time, and I ended up doing all of the boring work,
Hmm.
and they ended up all doing all the fun stuff.
Mm,
But it was okay. I mean, I'm not complaining. I then owned the company, which was great, and we had 10 successful years, um, and ended up publishing other bands as well. So
mm,
we worked with EMI, Warner Chappell. We signed a group to EMI, a huge deal that was pretty successful.
mm.
And then in 1996, the band split up, and so I just went full time into music publishing and became a businessman, but creative in the sense that I was signing bands, helping them to record their demos, getting it through to the record companies, getting them signed, and then helping to manage the career.
So that would be like a management business, or were you like you weren't a record label, right? You weren't pressing records.
No, yeah, it was management.
Got it.
So it's management with uh, touring, gig organizing, and publishing all kind of rolled into it.
Yeah, my best friend is a music agent in Nashville, and he says it's just
That's
amazing.
cool.
Like, yeah, don't hype him up anymore. He doesn't need it any further along his ego. But he said that it's just amazing because so much of the music business has just gone away from publishing. Like, there's just no money in publishing. So if you want to make
No,
money, you have to become a touring artist. That's like the only way to do it. So I mean, it's good
and
for him because he's a gig booking agent. So all the money
yeah,
flows into him.
we actually did both, but as you say, publishing was very lucrative at the time and isn't so much anymore. And the actual physical presence is where the money is, and it's interesting. And I like the fact, not obviously that publishing has kind of died and Spotify is paying very very little, and the songs that I wrote back in the day are getting cents. Sorry. Uh,
People still
I,
listening to songs you wrote? Dang, we got to check
oh
them
yeah.
out.
But a tiny, tiny amount of money. But when we play gigs is when we get the money.
Yeah.
And so that ends up being, in fact, the irony is that the digital side has taken away um, the indirect income, but help with the direct income because people are looking for that human contact because it's something that's slowly slipping away from a lot of us.
Yeah. I guess it's just if you're it's weird, right? Cuz it's like sort of a totally different world from like I like creating music like alone by myself, or me and my friends like to create music and record it and put it out, and then like we like to go play it in front of everyone. Like that's just
Yeah.
I mean, it seems similar, but it's not really. And
Well,
you're forced to sort of do the latter if you want to, make the first part meaningful.
yeah. I mean, the practicing. I'm in a band now, and we were practicing last night, and we've got about 25, 30 songs, and we were learning a new song yesterday, and I'd forgotten just how much work it is to learn a song that you've written
Hmm.
because you have nothing to refer to. So you're trying to explain to other people quite exactly what it is in your head. And then they say, well, I don't really agree with that, even if they understand what you're trying to explain. And there's a whole kind of creative process, which is really interesting, where there's a lot of disagreement and a lot of agreement, a lot of ideas, a lot of inspiration. But one of the biggest things, the barriers you need to get through is when people don't agree.
Mm.
Because we're all trying to put our thing into the song. We all have different opinions. And I remember back in the day when I was younger, there would be huge fights about something that at the end of the day, you listen to the song and you say, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
And I hope as a slightly more mature person in terms of years and in terms of how I approach the world and life. The practice yesterday was a lot of fun, even though we didn't agree about everything.
Well, that's, what bands do, they break up. I mean, basically every
Yep.
band that has ever existed eventually breaks up, right? So it seems like there's
Except the Rolling Stones.
yeah, they're making so much money. But, I know this from my friend who's in the music industry, and you probably know this too. Some bands, I'm not saying this is the Rolling Stones, some bands just hate each other and they just get together and they're like, we're just doing our job. Like we're
Yeah.
not this isn't like
Well,
a fun thing. We're coming together on Saturday, in London to play a show,
yeah.
but then we're like, we're not hanging out again after that.
Well, I mean, Charlie Watts said that um, from very early on. He's a really good jazz drummer and he's into jazz. So he goes down and plays the jazz clubs. And he said, I just pitch up to the Rolling Stones because it's my job. And I don't particularly like the music. I don't find it very challenging. I much prefer playing jazz, but it's an incredibly well paying job. And
Yeah.
I'd be a fool not to turn up and play for that amount of money. So, not my favorite thing in the world. And it gives me all the freedom I want. So, yeah, he openly says, I just treat it as a job.
Yeah, we went to a country music show together, and it's a duo, and he said they hate each other so much that they have to have separate dressing rooms. They, like,
Oh,
they
wow.
travel separate, they have separate dressing rooms, they literally, like, walk together, play on stage, walk apart, and that's it. I was like, "Geez," like, I don't know if that's
Right.
worth it, but so how does that business progress? Sounds like the band splits up, you go full-time into that business, and you said that all the businesses are still running, so
Oh,
clearly
right.
clearly that's
Well,
still out there.
yeah, well, in fact, what happened was that with my ex-wife, I decided I wanted to write children's songs.
Okay.
And so I wrote some children's songs and tried to get myself signed to a children's music label. And that failed as well,
Did
even though we had all the
Did
contacts.
you have kids at the time? Was that the motivation?
We just had a baby, yeah.
Okay, makes sense.
So I wrote the songs. She was sitting next to me. I was looking after her. My ex-wife went out and got made the money, and very generously said, "You can just stay at home, look after our daughter, and knock yourself out, make music, do what you want. I don't care." It was really sweet.
Mhm.
But I had a business partner at the time, and he was help. We were working on the music management and publishing together, and then we didn't manage to get the music signed. So my wife and I created two characters to go with the music,
'Kay.
called Bua and Koala. Bua, a blue dog, and Koala, a yellow koala, and created a book with the music. And we tried to get that signed as a book publishing deal with a music focused book.
Yep.
That didn't work either. And so I said, right, I'm going to make a website. And I learned Flash, Macromedia Flash at the time, Adobe
What
Flash,
year was this approximately, you think?
1998 exactly.
98, okay.
And built a website and put the songs into animations on the website using Flash, which at the time was just an animation tool. And it
Can
was a huge success.
can you just explain to people out there listening who I'm 33, so my first experience with a website was, like, there's already systems to build websites, but it still is complicated to use the system.
Mm,
What you're describing is, like, there's, like, a programming language basically, but then there's no system whatsoever. Like, I think people nowadays can't imagine that I
yeah,
can't get on Shopify and just, like, you know, drop in
yeah,
some images, click some buttons, and I could build a Shopify website in the next 60 minutes.
yeah. No, you had to code it all by hand. So I
Mm,
had to learn HTML by hand. And then Flash at the time was just animation. So it was an animation software that was adapted to stream on the web. And this was back when you had 14K modems. Now, today, 14K just doesn't mean anything to anybody because well, I don't understand 14K. That's 14,000. And I've got 500 megas with my fiber connection. 14K is so slow. You would watch a photo load and it would
Yep,
go down
yep,
like
I
this.
remember that.
And
Yep.
you'd be, waiting, looking at your watch, and 10 minutes later you'd see the photo and it wasn't the photo you were looking for. So you'd start all over again. And the lovely thing about Flash was that it was vectorial, so it was relatively light, and it streamed, which meant that you didn't have to wait for the whole thing to download. You could download the beginning of the animation and start watching that before the whole animation was downloaded.
Mm,
And I mastered that really early on, which is why the site was such a success, because people didn't have to wait and you could do smart stuff like I would have a little game going on
mm.
whilst the content loaded behind it. So the child would be watching a game or playing a game or interacting, thinking that was the thing. And then all of a sudden, the whole thing would open up and it would go, "Ba-da!" and it would be really glorious. And lots of animation with sound, with music. Music was really difficult to download at the time.
Mhm.
And so that strategy allowed us to keep the person entertained whilst we loaded the really strong content that was truly entertaining and engaging.
So
Um,
that sounds like a pretty like fundamental idea that you had that like, not to say that my music isn't going to be superior, my characters aren't going to be superior, but like my interface, my operating like experience, my user interface and operation is going to be superior and that's going to help me win. Like did that just like happen by accident or was that something you thought through like if I can make my website faster, better, smarter, I will get a leg up in this world.
I think it's because I had empathy for the child and the parent, because I know how frustrated children get waiting for things. You know, if you've got to wait for that
Oh yeah.
photo and it's 10 minutes,
Oh
the
yeah.
kid is just not, they're not going to sit down long enough for that. So it's a necessity. And parents with frustrated children get angry,
Mm,
and they get angry with me
mm,
because not because they hate me and not because they're bad people, but because a frustrated child is difficult to deal with, and the anger can't be thrown onto the child, so you throw it onto the thing that you're trying to use, which is my website. And we learned when we built the company, which I can talk about in a moment, very quickly that the the if we could build the whole thing totally bug free, smooth, beautiful UX, we never got complaints. And as
mm,
soon as there was a bug, we would get people writing the rudest emails you can possibly imagine. And I
mm,
had to tell my team that they're not horrible people, so be kind. They're frustrated because their child is really, really upset because the game is broken and they've just done all of this stuff and it doesn't come to the conclusion that they expected,
mm,
or you've lost their high score, or stuff like that. And a child doesn't understand that there are problems like that in life, and you have to deal with them. And the parents trying to deal with the child. So as you get that idea, so it wasn't a smart decision that I was thinking this is how I'm going to win the game. It was I need to be empathetic to my audience.
mm. Interesting. So it sounds like you started at that point to get some traction. Like, what were you doing to promote your website?
Well, back in the day, it was all Google was just starting in 1998 when I started. Google was just incorporating as a company,
Okay.
and there were 15 different search engines, and it was all very clunky, but it was fun. So search engines were one great way. There were what we called, I can't remember what they were called now, but they were basically groups of sites that got together to link in a circle together.
Okay.
So you would find a group um, that you naturally belonged to,
Hmm.
schools with kids' game sites, play groups, grandparents associations, and they would all just kind of say, "Oh, this is a good." So it was a mutual recommendation system that
Yeah, it's
worked
like
really well.
almost like an early like search engine. You go to this website, it's got a bunch of games on it. You click through the games, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mm.
No, yeah, 100%. And so early on, you said the characters were not as good and the songs weren't as good. I would say the characters were as
I
good.
didn't mean that they weren't as good. I said that what helped you win was that the
Yes.
operating system was better. I mean, like, who's to say what's a better character, Blue's Clues or Dora the Explorer? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know, but if the kids like it, like, that's
No,
like,
no, no. So I was teasing you, but that's a really interesting point because further on down the line, I took on a business partner, and the big, big, big beef between us, or one of the big beefs, was that for him, you couldn't like Dora the Explorer and Buwan Kuala. It had to be one or the other.
okay.
And for he was saying, I have to get all of these children to just like Buwan Kuala, and they have to never look at anything ever again. And I was saying, but they can like everything as long as we're making money and they're happy and we're doing a good job. And it was a very bizarre kind of approach that I deeply didn't appreciate.
That's like saying you can't like Taylor Swift and Selena Gomez. It's like, I like them both, whatever.
I mean, you can't have three friends.
Yeah, right. Well, you can't have 2 wives, so I don't know. That one's a limiting factor there. So
Um, but the beginning was really successful. We took off really quickly, and Macromedia invited me to Yukon '99, which was their yearly event, as one of the best Flash developers in the world. And I'd only been doing it for 6 months.
mm,
And that was a really, really big help to me because it put me at the center of a community that was actually growing very fast.
Hmm.
And
That makes
Flash has
sense.
died. Steve Jobs killed it off for various reasons, and historically, it's not very interesting. But it was a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant piece of software that helped the web grow enormously because it was so easy to deliver. And the big companies like the BBC were invited, and PBS were invited, and I think it was Sony Entertainment with the Prince of Egypt.
Hmm.
So I was sitting alongside the big guys, and that was the other really lovely thing about the web at the time is you could come from nowhere and be toe to toe with PBS and the BBC in 6 months. That's brilliant.
That sounds like a pretty big moment. That's kind of like being on the early forums when people are talking about this weird thing called cryptocurrency. It's like
Yeah,
being in that community at the right time can be a
yeah.
rocket ship.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I remember as well, it's another thing which is kind of human relationships, which is there was one guy, I can't remember his name, who was the go to guy for Flash. And when we were in Yukon, he was there as well. And we had a big kind of get together. And he just said, okay, brilliant, lovely. This guy, Jason, he's amazing. He's brilliant. Look at what he's done. And that validation from the leading light in the field really
Uh,
pushed that forwards.
hmm. So where does the brand go at that point in time? Where does your like maybe this is a better question. How was your time spent at that moment? Because it sounds like you're sort of getting billed as this like flash expert. Like, are they expecting you to spend a lot of time like working in the back end of the website, or did you actually have time to go out and build that business?
Well, in fact, at this point, that was a private project, and I was still doing management in the music industry.
Okay.
And then I decided that I would sell my share in WTPL Music and set up a new company for this new project.
Okay.
So I just did that, which is why the other company is still going
Hmm.
and it's still profitable because I sold it to my business partner, who's a great guy, and he's made a really big success out of it, and he's doing absolutely lovely. Um, and so moved over to the new one, but in fact there was no business model behind it at the time.
Mm.
And so it was building it in that internet bubble, which burst in 2001,
Mm.
because everybody said you will make a fortune just if you can get enough people coming to your website. We don't know how you're going to make a fortune,
Right.
but it'll happen. Don't worry about it.
Right.
And I kind of went along with that, and it was amazing because we built up a huge audience very very fast, and
Mm.
we were hugely successful. And several people wanted to invest in the company, and I chose the investor, and I chose, unfortunately, very, very, very badly.
Mm.
Um,
What happened?
and it all went well. It took 10 years, but it all went south. It all went horribly wrong. In fact, it took 11 years to kind of finally work its way out. But we decided to have this guy in as an investor because the way that he was organizing his investment meant we could move to Mauritius, which is a small island in the Indian Ocean,
Okay.
where it's sunny all the time, coconut trees, beaches, peaceful life, lovely people, calm, tropical island. I'm going to go and make cartoons for kids on a tropical island and live peacefully on the beach in the sun, making these games sitting underneath the palm tree with a hat on.
Why does it never work out as planned?
Well, the first years did. The first years were brilliant. We moved, did this. Unfortunately, I wasn't a developer at the time. I could do Flash and I could write HTML, but I couldn't do MySQL PHP, and I didn't know anything about network management and content delivery at scale. And I thought, I'll just find people and employ them. It'll be fine. And of
Hmm.
course, I arrived on the island and there was nobody to employ because they didn't have people with that expertise.
Hmm.
So I had to learn all of the back end stuff on my own
Mm.
with trial and error. And every time it broke, of course, parents, which is why I know how annoyed parents get, because it kept breaking because I wasn't very good at it.
Mm.
And so I figured after a while, the best way to solve this problem of aggressive emails that I don't have time to answer is to stop the website breaking.
Hmm.
So I spent enormous amounts of effort and time and nights and making sure that the website was incredibly robust, and it was phenomenally robust. To give you an idea, we got 1 billion page views in 2007 in 1 year. 60 million people, 1 billion page views.
Jeez, that's
Yeah.
wild.
And I was doing all of the back end myself on my own. And we would get maybe one complaint a week, and it was very, very, very rare we got any complaints about bugs or issues with the delivery of the website. The complaints were more about somebody said that they didn't like the fact we'd use stars, that we shouldn't be using them, we should be using something else, or we use suns. And so it's complaints from people about their perspective on the world, as opposed to complaints because we weren't delivering what we were supposed to deliver.
And at that time, what was the monetization strategy?
Well, by that time, we built the business model. The business model was really, really sweet, is that we had such a huge volume of visits. We just put ads on the pages
Yeah.
and got peanuts for the ads. I mean, it's very little, but it added up because there was such a huge volume. And then we said to parents, there was a big button that said, if you don't want the ads and you want this to open full screen and have a secure environment for your child, pay €5 a month and you get the site ad free, full screen, secure. Your kid can't get out of it, and you can go away and do the cooking. And you know that they'll be locked into this website, and there's no way for them to get out of this particular environment.
I mean,
Um,
that's probably
so we had both. Sorry.
that's probably pretty. I don't want to say early on in that like ad versus ad free model, but that now that's so popular.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think I invented it. I'm sure other people were doing it, but this was in 2003.
Yeah. So
And
advertising and paid subscribers, TV
yeah, I mean
or
that
video
yeah.
was also going to be a part of it.
Well, we built the model and the characters and the business using that freemium idea,
Hmm.
and it was it's going great. And then ITV International, now called ITV Studios, Radio Canada, came to us for a TV series. So we made a TV series that aired on Playhouse Disney,
Okay.
and it aired in 20 countries around the world. So we then turned it into a terrestrial TV. We also signed with Samsung to deliver to their first interactive TV. So we were precursors on the web. We were doing deals with huge companies, and it was going incredibly well. And it was a hugely profitable business. Once again, on a tropical island, living the life. It could not have been better.
No, I mean that sounds like what entrepreneurs dream about because you don't have like a physical product. There's really not a whole lot of like cost of management. It's just the intellectual property, and people are
Mm,
visiting your website, and you're probably doing website edits and updates every so often. But
mm.
it didn't sound like it was a 50-person team. How many people were on the team at that point in time?
6.
Well, that's pretty cool. Pretty green.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing about the complaints is I had to have 3 people at one point just to deal with the incoming emails,
Mm,
and by making the platform more robust, improving the delivery, I managed to reduce that to one, and one person very happily just replying to a few emails a month and then doing some other stuff, and that taught me the importance of robustness in delivery.
mm.
And it was a huge win for me now with Calicube. It's absolutely one of the best things I ever learned, simply because Calicube is now I have a whole platform behind Calicube with those 9.4 billion data points, and it's incredibly robust and it doesn't break, and it all fits together perfectly, and that's exactly what we need.
So, I guess why didn't you just continue on with this business, these characters, this website? Sounds like you're kind of printing money. Like, why didn't you just continue on and living out the island life?
Huge disagreement with my business partner. Um, it was I could see the way forward, or for me, the way forward was to keep scaling. We could go from 1 billion to 2 billion to 3 billion, and
Those are big numbers.
the yeah, well, the income wouldn't increase threefold. It would increase by whatever, let's say 60%, but the cost would only increase by 5%.
Right.
So for me, I'm saying, well, yeah, the scale is not a problem because I know I can deliver.
Mm,
The income is going to increase significantly faster than the cost because the incremental cost of each additional visit is pretty much
yeah.
zero. I want to keep going with that. And he came and said, well, I want to put an email barrier that people can't get into the website unless they give their email. And once we've got their email, we've got them and we can suck as much money out of each child as we possibly can. And I really don't agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, getting their email, I think, is a good thing, but I guess it depends on what kind of barrier we're talking.
Well, he came to me with a whole business plan of uh, how many euros per head of child he was making a month. And I was coming to him with a business model that said, how many children can we get using the website, making the most of it? It was educational content as well. So I just want to help the world.
Mm.
So that was part of my motivation. And saying, well, if I can scale the number of children who have access to this platform faster and bigger than the cost that we have, sharing is better for me. I mean, he might have made more money than I would, but that wasn't what was motivating me. And I think that was the disagreement. I was looking at it as a really lovely way to make a really good living, making amazing content, having fun sitting on a desert island. And he saw it as a business money making opportunity where you've got to get as much money as you possibly can, as fast as you possibly can.
Mm. Well, I think it's just the difference of the idea, right? Like I've heard entrepreneurs say, you give, 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 then you ask, right? So it sounds like that was kind of your philosophy. Like, hey, if we can just get people really excited about the content and the website and like they don't have to pay anything, like they're going to want to give to us on that time when we do ask, hey, we've got a movie out. We'd love
Yeah.
for you to go watch it, subscribe,
Yeah.
buy it.
Yeah. And once you've got the TV series out, you kind of think, well, we can actually move this out onto the TV screens. Then we can start. We sold plush toys.
Yep.
And they were starting to sell quite well. I mean, T-shirts. There are lots of opportunities that I could see around it
Books,
that
lunch
would benefit from,
boxes,
yeah,
thermoses, everything.
and it would benefit from volume,
Yeah.
from popularity. So I mean, we just disagreed. We had a huge fight about it, and in the end, I sold up and walked out
Mm,
because I just couldn't handle the disagreement. So that was 2011. So it took 3 years for us to sort out our differences to the point at which I just gave up
mm,
and just said, just buy my share and do what you want. I've given up caring. Um, and unfortunately, I mean, the business still makes money, but I don't know how much, and it's certainly not as popular as I thought it should be and it deserved to be. But that's not my problem anymore.
never quite reached the Dora the Explorer, Blue's Clues kind of scale that you were thinking it could be.
Yeah, I thought we could do that, and I think obviously asking for an email seems like such a small step, but we actually tried it, and even asking for an email from somebody to access free content, you would get 5% the people who at that time were willing to give their email to get access to this content,
I mean, that's a
which
huge,
is,
huge bounce rate.
yeah. I mean, we might have done it badly and it could have done better. Maybe I didn't put my best efforts into it. Maybe I mean, and I'm not a very good marketer. I wasn't at the time. I am now. I hope I am now. So it's one of those things, and it's a difference of opinion where two people simply cannot agree, and one of them has to leave, and it was me.
Mm.
I mean, I did a decent exit. I'm quite happy from that perspective, and I just moved on to a different career.
Mm. Oh, I was smiling because you said you're not a good marketer, but you had 1 billion views on your
Yeah.
website per year. I mean, like those things are kind of incompatible. Um,
Okay. I'll take that compliment.
yeah. So this exit happens. Do you leave the island?
Yes.
What was island life look like for that period that you were there?
What was living on the island like?
Yeah. I mean, I'm
Well,
looking at where it is on the map and it's like out past Madagascar and
yeah.
Mozambique. I mean, like I couldn't have pointed you anywhere near this island when you said it.
Yeah, we kind of, it was at a time as well in 2000 when people were saying you can do the internet from anywhere.
Right.
And so I said, okay, I'll go and do it from, and I spun the globe and put my finger on it, Mauritius. It's not quite like that, but it makes a nice story. Um, and you can, or even in 2000, you could run an internet site from absolutely anywhere and make a huge success, as we demonstrated.
Uh-huh.
But life on the island was lovely. It's an interesting country in that they all speak French, but the official language is English, so everything is written in English.
Huh.
So you get somebody giving you a piece of official paperwork, and you say, "Well, I don't understand what I'm supposed to do with this,"
Mm.
and they will explain the paper to you in French,
I
but
see.
the paper's written in English, and you have to fill it in English, and that's completely normal.
Er,
But the people are really kind. It's a really easygoing, gentle atmosphere. There's no stress. It's sunny literally all the year round. You have cyclones from time to time, which mess things up a bit, but that's life. Um, and our daughter had the best childhood you could possibly imagine
hmm.
because you don't have the outside world pressure that you would get, or the societal pressure you would get in New York or in London or in Paris, or even in the south of France for that matter, because the country is so detached. a lot of the societal pressures on the kids to grow up fast weren't there. So she, when we left, was 15, and she was still very naive and still enjoying a very naive, fun, delightful childhood. And she came to Paris. We moved to Paris. It was a real culture shock.
Oh yeah, I believe it.
And she really, it was a huge slap in the face for her. I mean, she dealt with it admirably, but it wasn't ideal.
Okay, so you're back in Paris now. That business is behind you. Are
Mm.
you thinking of like, hey, maybe I just don't go back into business? Maybe I just kind of utilize the money that I made from this past exit? I mean, what was your thought at that point in time?
Well, it's an interesting question because there's actually a 3-year gap before I created Calicube, and people often ask me why from 2012 2015 I didn't have a new business. And the answer is because I started freelancing. I was in Paris, doing fine, and I like working on how do I get and yeah, okay, marketing. I like working on how do I get people to this website? How do I leverage Google to get them to send me or my client as much traffic, as many people who are relevant to my business as possible? And so I did consulting for a while for that. And when I actually went and pitched, I would go in, give the talk, say, I can make this happen. I did 1 billion page views for this website. I can do the same for your business. And people go, brilliant, wonderful. I would tell them what the strategy would look like. They would be on board, looking brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And I estimate I lost over $1 million in potential sales that just went through the floor out in the dustbin. Because when I walked out, having left my business card, they didn't look at the business card. They Googled my name. And my name, when you Googled it in 2012 to 2014, said, Jason Barnard is Boo the cartoon blue dog. Because that's what I was known for, because that's what I've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, oh, I'm not going to trust this guy with my marketing strategy. I've got this company that has a $15 million income a year. This guy's a cartoon blue dog voiceover artist. Oh, no.
We're a serious
We wouldn't.
business.
Yeah. And so they would sign with that agencies because agencies reassure them. And this freewheeling thought, I don't know how you call it, creative guy just doesn't hack it in comparison. So in terms of lifetime values of the clients, I think I don't know, I lost maybe 20 deals that way
Mm.
with lifetime values that would have been $1 million because I was asking quite a lot of money as well for my expertise. And then I thought, okay, this is losing me business. What do I do? And I'm really good at SEO. That was 20% of the traffic for the kids' site was from Google.
Yep. 20%. That doesn't seem that. I mean, is that
Well, that's because most of it was people coming back time and time again because the kids would
direct?
obviously, yeah, the kids would get incredibly involved with the characters and they'd love their favorite games. And kids are very good at this kind of repetition thing that we got a lot of repeat visits. So 20% isn't much from Google, but if you think about what 20% of 60 million is, it is a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
So 20 million, so I'll tell you, it's 12 million from Google in a year. And the site was just for children under 10 years old. And it was only in French and English.
Mm.
So that's a big number in 2007. So
Yeah.
the Google's aspect, as you say, doesn't sound much when it's 20%, but when you say 12 million kids, it does sound like a lot more.
Yeah, I was just thinking about my friends that are like in the trades, like roofing, plumbing, things like that, and like almost all of their traffic comes from Google. Like people
All right.
aren't like punching in, West Jefferson plumbing and heating. Like it's just not happening. So they search like plumber near me, and then people find them from that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, local business is very much like that. Whereas with personal branding, you're saying, especially in B2B, for B2B, it's really important, the personal brand. And I was doing B2B, and my personal brand, because I was a freelance consultant, my personal brand was my business.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously for me, it was hugely more important than it is for many people. But I solved that problem and the leakage stopped.
Okay.
And that was great. And I thought, okay, so that's really helpful. And I carried on. And then one day, my name was all over the news. The BBC, AOL, the Daily Mirror in the UK, Jason Barnard, caught speeding 3 times the speed limit, criminally charged.
3 times the speed limit.
But it wasn't me.
Uh
It was somebody else with my name, and I call that namesake online reputation crisis.
Well, I've
Because
I've
when
got
you,
that. My name is Alexander Johnson. You said, what do you go by, Alex or Alexander? I don't really care, but Alex Johnson. I mean, there's a lot of us. So,
yes. And the thing is, today, the AI gets very confused. It can't distinguish between different people. So
mm,
it's actually statistically very, 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 very highly probable that it will mix you up with somebody else and say something about you that's actually somebody else with the same name. And if that somebody else happens to be a criminal, that's a huge problem for your reputation
oh yeah,
because there's no distinguishing. I mean, with Google, you could read the articles and you would see it wasn't me because the guy was in the UK. Um, but do people do that research? And with AI, people just say, "Oh, AI says this guy's a criminal, so he must be a criminal."
right.
So that namesake online reputation management, I solved that problem because once again, people would search my name. They say, "Oh, well, the guy's a criminal." It was actually surprisingly less of a problem than the blue dog.
Mm,
But I solved that problem by explaining to Google, educating Google. And this is where I got to the point where I was saying, well, actually, I'm educating this machine like it's a child. I educated it that I didn't want to focus on the blue dog. I wanted to focus on entrepreneurship and digital marketing. I am not the same person as this guy in the UK because I live in France. I wasn't in the UK at the time. I have this career. He has that career. Please don't confuse us anymore. So I was educating Google like it was a child. And that's when CaliCube kicked off. I said, this is a hugely valuable service that I can offer to everybody. Everybody needs it to some extent. And my approach of educating the algorithms really works well.
so what does that fundamentally look like? Educating the algorithm sounds good. What does that look like? What is that in practice?
Well, if you look at the algorithms right now, you would focus on search results, large language model chatbots like ChatGPT, and knowledge graphs like Google's knowledge graph. And those are the three main types of algorithm you need to educate. And they all use the same data set, which is the web.
Hmm. Okay.
So you educate them by placing the right information in the right places, explaining the right things across the web. Because then they go around, they pick it all up, and it all makes sense to them, and they will say what you want them to say because they've understood. So I talk about understandability for that. And then, if they've understood you, the next stage is how I'm going to make them think that I'm credible, that I'm trustworthy. So you build your credibility on top of that understanding. So Jason, I understand who Jason Barnard is. He's a digital marketer. He's the world's leading expert in brand authority. And I trust him because he has successful case studies about his clients. He has a lot of testimonials. He has authoritas saying that he's wonderful. He's worked with SEMrush. Wordlift say he's great. He speaks at conferences. He's on podcasts. He's written 3 books. All of that builds up this credibility. And at that point, when you to come back to the kind of practical aspect of it, these algorithms are trying to recommend the best solution to a specific problem that a user is sharing with them.
Yes,
So you sit down,
I explain that to my clients all the time about Amazon.
right?
What you search is the problem. Amazon's trying to populate the solution to that problem.
And that's what Google does. That's what ChatGPT does. They're trying to lead their user to the best possible solution to their problem. And people use Google, ChatGPT, and Perplexity because they trust them as recommendation engines.
Okay.
So we're on the same page with that, and that's beautiful. So if they understand who you are, then they can understand how credible you are, at which point they're likely to recommend you to the subset of their users who are your audience. And that's the trick.
So that would include creating content around your personal brand and branding so that if someone was to search, whatever, your business or your name or, a certain topic, then you're going to pop up. Is that part of it, that I need to have some,
Yeah.
volume of content out there around my name?
Well, you've made the leap that a lot of people do make, and you're putting the cart before the horse, as we say
Okay.
in the UK. I don't know if you say that
We
in the
do.
US.
Yep. Mhm.
All right, so we've just put the cart before the horse because understandability. Does the machine understand who you are, what you do, and who you serve? You don't need to create anything new. You just need to organize what you already have
Okay.
because your digital footprint is going to be very fragmented. Whether you think it is or not doesn't matter. It is, believe me, everybody's is.
No, I believe that.
So you, hey, thank you. Well, maybe the listener doesn't. You take what you have and you organize it around what we call the entity home, which is the central reference point that the algorithms use to figure out who you are. and that needs to be a website that you own. So it's your about page on your personal website. And you explain really clearly who you are, what you do, who you serve, and why you're credible.
Okay.
And then you link out to all the resources that confirm it, and you make sure that all of those resources say the same thing as you're saying on your entity home. And then they link back to your entity home, and the machine just goes backwards and forwards like this, seeing the same information. And after enough repetition, it will just understand it and believe it. So you don't actually need to create anything new. You just need to organize yourself properly.
That makes sense, because I'm thinking about my own self, and I've done a good amount of things on the internet. I've got 100 plus podcasts out there, and a couple dozen podcasts that I've done with other groups and entities, and our business website, and ranked on Inc. 5000. I think 7 times in a row now we've been on the fast growing list, and same thing as Columbus Business First, fast growing lists. But I don't think that my digital profile is probably organized in one place.
Yeah.
So your advice would be the about page on my personal website, which I give like no love to.
Yeah. You should give a lot more love to it, if I may give you advice.
It's good advice. I just I struggle to put the time together for that, because
Mm.
this is one of my hurdles, my struggles is like the business is growing with the here and now actions that I take, like cold reach outs,
Yeah.
um, grow the sales arm of the business. I think that if I was to approach my business partner and say, "Hey, I've got this content idea. It's going to take 3 years to pay off, and it may not pay off at the end of 3 years. And like I need I need a videographer, and I need maybe an SEO person that I'm going to be
Yeah.
paying full time." He's going to be like, "Why don't we just like keep doing the cold reach out thing that's like kind of already currently working?"
Mm. No, 100%. I mean, I get that. And it's a very valid point. I mean, you mentioned 3 years, you pulled that out of the air. But yeah, it will start to pay off after a year. But the real kind of rolling would be, I mean, it's realistically a 3 year project to get your place top of mind of the algorithms and keep your place. But to get top of mind for the algorithms, we call it top of algorithmic mind. So when you're having a conversation with ChatGPT, sorry, you're using ChatGPT, you're having a conversation,
Yep.
and it's trying to find the solution and effectively bringing you down the funnel. And you want your brand, personal or corporate, to be top of algorithmic mind at every stage on the way down, but particularly at the bottom when the person's found the solution and then says, well, actually, now I know what the solution is. Who of the three choices that I have should I choose? You want to make
Mm.
sure the machine says that it's you because there's one click and it's called the perfect click.
So, how does ranking on like an algorithm like ChatGPT? This is sort of a really new thing. This is like only something I
Yeah.
feel like I'm starting to hear people talk about. My friend, he's a roofer, and he started to invest in like ChatGPT, like ranking, and he's like, "Holy crap, we just got like a huge job from this. Like it's starting to work. It's not just like this, oh yeah, you'll get clients from ChatGPT. It like sounds good, does it actually happen? Um, how does working on those algorithms differ to working on something like Google, or are they very similar?
Well, I had a conversation with a potential client yesterday who was asking about ChatGPT, and they're saying, "Well, we need to work with you on ChatGPT." And I laid out how we would approach it, and her take was, "This is just SEO," and she'd misunderstood not what we were doing, but the way that it all fits together.
Okay.
Because SEO is just optimizing for search, but you need to optimize for the chatbots and for the knowledge graphs. So if you look at it this way, the chatbot, ChatGPT, has knowledge from its training data that allows it to have and the ability to have a conversation. If you ask it about Napoleon Bonaparte, it doesn't need to look it up online because it already has the information.
Okay.
If you ask it about something it doesn't know about, it needs to use the web index to look it up.
Got it.
If you're asking about something recent, news, for example, sports scores, it needs to use the web to look it up for that recency. If you're looking for something incredibly niche, it won't have it in the training data, it needs to use the web. But it has the problem that it makes mistakes, it hallucinates.
Mm.
So it needs a knowledge graph, and a knowledge graph is just a machine readable encyclopedia that's hugely big to fact check.
Could you linger on that knowledge graph for a second, because I wrote that down and I wasn't really very familiar with that term.
Right. Well, Google has a huge knowledge graph, about 50 billion things in knowledge graph. So it understands 50 billion people, corporations, music, albums, films, all of the things that you can imagine, and attributes of them. For example, Jason Barnard from the UK. Jason Barnard, 5'10" tall. Jason Barnard is a digital marketer, things like that. Understands as well that Jason Barnard is the CEO and founder of Calicube. So it can fit facts together like we do in the brain with people, corporations, product, films, music albums, music groups, their attributes and the relationships between them.
Is that like a stored thing? Is it
Yeah.
because you said that they don't need to look up Napoleon. They've got that kind of like ready to regurgitate at any point in time. Just like I have, some facts about Albert Einstein. I don't have any deep facts, but I've got a handful that are like ready to go.
Yeah.
Um, is that sort of like it's stored for like optimization of the like processing? Am I thinking about that correctly?
Yeah. Well, the knowledge graph is just like Wikipedia, but 20,000 times bigger and machine readable. And the knowledge graph contains everything Google can possibly understand. So it's not just famous people and famous companies like Wikipedia, it's any person or any company. If it understands it, it gets it in the knowledge graph.
And is that the first
And
place that like a
an
chat
LLM?
bot and an AI would go? Is that
Yeah.
knowledge graph?
No, it's not quite like that because
Okay.
what they do is it's geeky and boring, but predictive. So what it does is predict the next most probable word.
Yep.
So it builds a sentence doing that. So the fact about Napoleon Bonaparte or the information about Napoleon Bonaparte would come out, but it doesn't understand whether or not it's true. It has no idea what it's saying.
Mm,
So it needs that fact checking element behind it.
I see.
Now, they're building some of the fact checking already into the LLM, but that fact checking at the end of the day has to be done using some kind of reliable encyclopedic source, and that's a knowledge graph.
Okay.
So even if they're training the machine to start thinking better, which they are, they need the knowledge graph because they need it to be able to check the factuality, the factual relevance, or the factual accuracy of the information they're giving out. So those three pieces of technology fit together.
Got it.
They all use the web as their source of data primarily, but they all function differently and they all have different needs from that content. So when the person said to me, this is just SEO, you're saying, well, it's still bots reading the web and feeding that information to the algorithms, but the bots need to put the information into the web index in a very particular way for each of the algorithms. And each of the algorithms needs the web content for different purposes and uses it differently, but they all come together at the top. And I wanted to draw a diagram of it, which I'm going to try and do tomorrow, but I'm a very bad illustrator. But you've basically got the web, these three technologies, and then the output. So it goes kind of this nice kind of 1 into 3 and then 3 into 1. It's a really nice kind of figure like that.
Mm.
And you're saying that's where the whole thing happens, is in those three technologies. And if you can master all three, then you've won the what they call generative engine optimization goal. I call them AI assistive engines because I think it's more descriptive of what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And SEO, as it's traditionally done with links and word counting, will only feed the web index properly.
Okay.
And I'll give you an example. And the lady actually said, oh, right, okay, I get that. An LLM has no idea about links because it's trained on masses of words. And if you say to it, where did you get that piece of information from? If it's getting it from its training data, it doesn't know.
Mm.
How does that person's website relate to the other person's website? It would need to go online to look it up.
Okay.
So it would need the web index in live to be able to figure out the relationship between two websites, unless it happens to be in their training data. But you see what the kind of problem is that the LLM is doesn't understand what it's saying and doesn't have context around what it's got in its vectorial database. It's going to say, well, I'll pick this little bit and this little bit and this little bit, but it does it without context, so it doesn't actually mean anything.
Mm.
And the knowledge graph gives it fact-checking and context, and the web index gives it the opportunity to look things up and make the connections.
Inter
I'm getting a bit geeky. I
No,
do
no, it's
apologize.
interesting.
We started with a blue dog and punk folk music and music publishing. We've ended up talking about knowledge graphs.
Well, it's really interesting because I guess I hadn't really ever thought of, like, if I ask, AI, like, "Hey, I want a marketing agency in Columbus, Ohio." Like, how is it making that decision? I've never really thought through how is it making that decision. And I don't do any shopping like that. It's just not how I shop, but I could foresee, and Google's already doing it, like, basically on your behalf, right? If you go to Google and, you search for, whatever, like you said, who was Napoleon? Now um maybe that's not a good example, and they're actually not
Well,
giving me the
in
AI
Google, it will give you
summary.
one of these. It will give you a knowledge panel because it's facts.
Yes, it is.
And the knowledge panel is the factual representation of the knowledge graph. So this is the facts according to Google.
All right, so
Sorry,
what would
I
be maybe a
interrupted.
better question to ask AI or here? Like, because Google's doing that preemptive, like, little AI, like, you ask, like, "What is
Yeah.
going on in the war in Gaza?" And it'll just, like, give you, like, a little
Well,
summary.
I mean, you could try that. What's going on in politics in
Well,
France, for
actually, let's do
example?
Serbia because I just saw that there's some stuff happening in Serbia, and sure enough, they have given me the AI overview right now. Experiencing a period
Right.
of significant civil unrest, and then they have some links here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so what that has done is gone and picked out all the little bits of, it's not pages, it's passages from pages.
yeah,
So it's picking out multiple passages and then summarizing them for you. But if you look next to that, you should have AI mode.
yeah. Dive deeper in AI mode. I click
Yeah.
it.
So if you click on that, what you will see is something even more immersive and much more like ChatGPT, where you can now start to have a conversation with it.
Yeah, it gives me suggested things to ask. Elaborate more on the government response. What are
Yeah.
the protester specific demands?
So AI mode is Google's response to ChatGPT.
Hmm.
And I mean, you were saying you don't do shopping that way, and I mean, I've got a really nice story as a musician. Is that I play the double bass,
Okay.
double fiddle, and I've got a huge bass amp, and I've got a guitar, and I wanted to play the guitar, and I thought, well, if I play it through the bass amp, I might break the bass amp, but I don't want to buy a new guitar amplifier. So I asked ChatGPT, if I play my double bass through my guitar, sorry, through the bass amplifier, will I break it? ChatGPT said, no, you won't break it, no problem, but it will sound not very good.
Okay.
So it immediately came up with the answer to a question I hadn't yet asked myself. And I said, okay, it's not going to sound very good. Is there anything I can do about that? And it said, yes, you need to add a compressor, an equalizer, and a reverb. I said, okay, brilliant. How would I do that? And it said, well, you buy pedals and you hook them up, and your guitar goes through them, and it goes to the amplifier, and it will sound significantly better. I said, okay, which ones do you recommend? And it gave me a list of three.
Wow.
I said, how much is that going to cost me? It said $250. I said, I don't want to spend $250. Can you find me something equivalent for 150? He said, well, 150, you can use these three. If you're a professional musician, it won't sound good enough for you, but if you're an amateur, it's absolutely fine.
Hmm.
I said, well, I play 1 gig a month in front of people in this area. Nobody's really listening to the sound. I'm not an incredibly good jazz guitarist anyway. So I'm going for the $150. Where should I buy it? If you're in America, buy from Sweetwater. If you're in Europe, buy from Thomann. I'm in Europe. Here's the link to Thomann. Clicked on the link, went through, bought it. 15 minutes from the moment I started the problem, which was I want to play my guitar through the bass amp, which I thought was a stupid idea, to buying for $150 from Thomann.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I definitely can see how that would synthesize the information.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. I find it a really fun way to shop, to be honest, because I'm having a conversation with a trusted advisor, and I enjoy it. And the nice thing as well is that ChatGPT or Gemini AI mode or Copilot or Perplexity knows a lot more than I do about the world. So I'm relying on it to know what it's talking about. I'm relying on it to understand the world. I'm relying on it to have an opinion. And so if we come back to my perspective, is my job is to change its understanding of you, improve its opinion of you, so that it recommends you when your users are having that kind of conversation where you can help.
Mm. And it sort of sounds like whether or not that generative AI thing is your final solution, like I said, marketing agencies in Columbus, Ohio, like
Yeah,
maybe in 2 or 3 years, that's gonna be a more prevalent way of searching. Um, but it sounds like everything that you're doing is only gonna help just Google anyways. It's going to
yeah.
help, backlinking in knowledge panels
Yeah.
for Google. I'm sure I don't have a knowledge panel.
But and that's the kind of the thing about it is what I'm trying to do is I don't know if the word is lessen the blow, but say to people it isn't SEO or generative engine optimization. It's both, and you need to evolve what you're doing in SEO to fit into this new algorithmic trinity. I call them this new three algorithm model.
Mm,
And so you evolve your SEO to please all three of them, and you work on all three of them at the same time with the same data source and the same work. And that makes a lot of sense. And it's a really lovely way to evolve rather than to think, I've got to throw all of my SEO out the window, which is what some people now think.
mm.
You don't.
So then if someone's listening, whether they're an individual or they own a business, what would be some of the, I don't call them simple recommendations, but the low cost, high impact things that someone could do that would help them on all three of these kind of algorithms that you've talked about?
Well, the first thing to do is clean up your digital footprint,
What does that mean to you?
which is the process I described earlier, which is spend some time on your about page, define on your about page who you are, what you do, who you serve, and why people should trust you.
Okay. Who we are, what we
That
serve.
will make you think
Yep.
already about who am I, what do I do, who would I serve, and what proof do I have that I'm actually good at what I do and I can be trusted.
Right. So, like, just to something as simple as I'm thinking out loud, like, if I was to go into, ChatGPT and search like who is Alexander V. Johnson, like they probably could just pull straight off my about page. Alexander V. Johnson is an entrepreneur in Columbus, Ohio.
Or you could try it because sometimes it will and sometimes it won't. If it doesn't know where your website is, it can't go and pull from it.
I'm scared. I don't want it to
So,
think I don't exist.
so well, if you search my name on ChatGPT, it will come up with my entire life story. Not all of that information is on my about page. That's a much more advanced strategy. And some people say to me, yeah, it's just reading your website. And it's really simple. And my answer to them is, yes, it is to a certain extent, but it trusts me enough and the factuality of the information I provide, and it's checked it against the knowledge graph, that it actually does do that.
Mhm.
But it won't do that by default, especially if it hasn't understood who you are. So that idea is you want to get to the point where it will just pull from your about page and it will do so consistently.
Yeah, I mean yours. I just searched your name on Google, and sure enough, your knowledge panels here. You got the overview on the right hand side, and then you got just a bunch of links directly to content that you've produced.
And then if you click on AI mode, you'll see a really nice description of my whole life that summarizes basically what Google knows about me.
And there's apparently also a hockey player who's competing with you. He's way down the page, but
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
those
No, he's getting quite famous, so it's quite annoying, but that's a different problem for another day.
yeah.
But then so you've when you do that, you actually force yourself to think, who am I, what do I do, who do I serve, and why should they trust me?
Mm,
Then you take that information and you make sure that all of your social media profiles, all of your bylines on your articles, all of your YouTube videos corroborate that information, either all of it or part of it. And you'll find that a lot of the time, lots of things that you created years ago don't actually tell the story you're telling today.
mm,
So you then create a much more consistent message that becomes repetition for the algorithms that they love.
mm,
And once you've done that, and not before, you then link from the entity home, the about page, to all of these resources and back from those resources to create what we call the infinite loop of self corroboration.
mm,
And the reason I say do that first is number one, the whole foundation is, does the machine understand you? You can't be credible if it hasn't understood who you are because it can't apply any credibility signals. Google calls them EEAT until it understands who it's trying to apply them to. So that understandability that we do in the CaliCube process, which is the first phase, is foundational. You can't skip it. But the other thing that we now realize, we don't work with corporations on the entire strategy anymore, but we will work with them on the first part. Because as you go through your digital footprint, or as we go through it when we're working for clients, we can see where the successes are. We can see where the failures are. We can see what's important in their digital marketing strategy off their website. And we can help them to focus better on the off-site work that they need to do with their entire digital marketing strategy. But if you do this whole process as a company or a person, you will see where you're weak. You will see where you're strong. You will see where it's working, and you'll see where it's not working.
Mm.
And so it helps you to build out a much, much smarter strategy, or a much, much better prioritized strategy. So you're not just throwing spaghetti at the wall anymore. You know where you're throwing the spaghetti, in the plate. Don't know why I said in the plate. Oh, because I want to eat it.
Mm. Okay.
So that first phase is kind of self-analysis and reflection.
And that seems like just not a ton of technical work, just like linking to the things that you've
Yep.
already done from one centralized homepage that has who you are,
Yes.
who you serve, why you're relevant.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, and we give away free guides. So I'll do my little promotion here, kalicube.com, kalicube.com/guides. And we give it away. And you can do it for free. You don't need us.
Well, I'm on your website. I'm gonna have to get the guide. Um, so what about for like a business? It sounds a little bit centralized to an individual. Is it different at all for a business?
It's exactly the same.
Same thing.
It works for a person, it works for a business, it works for a product.
Okay.
So it will work for anything in your business. I mean, we focus on people because, in particular, entrepreneurs, because we can help an entrepreneur with their personal brand when their personal brand makes money for their business. So if your personal brand, or somebody searching your name, or somebody being reassured by ChatGPT or Google that you are the person, the leader in your industry, could get you a deal for $50,000, it's well worth working with Calicube.
Yeah,
If it isn't going to get you a deal of $50,000 in the first year, we're not a good option, but you can do it yourself
I see.
for free.
Follow.
For a corporation, the whole system is exactly the same. If you're a corporation that has multiple products, it works exactly the same for a product. You give the product its own entity home. You describe what it is, what it does, who it serves, why it's the best solution.
You said its own entity home. Is that a unique page or a
Yeah.
unique? And could that be like a product page, like a
Yep.
purchase page?
But for the manufacturer of the product rather than the person who's selling it.
Yeah, correct. The brand.
Yeah. And so, for example, you have a product that's also available on Amazon and all the other platforms, and you're a manufacturer, you think, well, I need my own product page on my own website. The BMW website would have a web page for the specific model of a specific car, and it needs the rest of the web to be consistent with that message. And one of the things, especially with products, I mean, products is less of a problem, so we don't focus on that, is that website or shopping websites tend to publish the same description that the manufacturer gives them.
Yeah.
But now there's a battle in the SEO world where they say, well, I'm going to write my own description because everybody else has the same description. It's the only way I can differentiate myself.
Is that the correct thing to
But,
do? Is have a different description?
well, it is for the shop, yeah,
I see.
but it's not for the manufacturer.
I see. So the manufacturer would want their central kind of product page to be sort of like the home of that product, if you will.
Yeah, and they would ideally want the websites that sell their product, if they do write their own description, to stick to the correct facts
I see.
and stick to the brand narrative and the brand message. They can change the text, but they shouldn't change the message. And that, for products, I think is going to be a problem moving forwards. But that's really not my problem. I'm not interested in that market in particular. But if it helps anybody on this show, I'm super happy.
Mhm.
But if we come back to that, you could call it a spring clean, a digital spring clean, an optimization of your digital footprint. It makes a huge difference to that result when somebody searches your name on Google or asks ChatGPT about you, what we call your AI resume, because it will make you look much, much better. Instead of saying, Alex Johnson is owner of business Y, I don't know, I'm afraid I don't know what your company's called.
Mixed
I do
solutions. Yeah,
apologize.
mixed
Mixed
solutions.
Solutions. It will say, Alex Johnson is the proud owner of Mixed Solutions, which is a huge company that makes lots of money. And Alex is one of the best business people in the world. And he has a hugely successful career starting in 2011, bleedy blue. And this is the nice one when you get it. he is renowned for,
Ah,
respected for. You want those adjectives. We all want those adjectives. And I get those. And that foundational work that you would do would get you much more of that in ChatGPT. So when somebody asks ChatGPT or asks Google, they will be much more enthusiastic about you.
mm,
And I asked ChatGPT the other day uh, about myself as part of my ongoing experiments. And, I gave a great answer. And then I said, would you recommend Jason Barnard for knowledge panels on Google? It said one word, yes, with an exclamation mark.
mm,
That's what I want.
mm,
Because it's absolutely absolute, as it were. And so as a user, if I saw that, I said, well, ChatGPT has zero doubt about this
yeah,
guy. I'm in.
yeah. That's amazing, Jason. That seems like a fitting place to end right there with a exclamation point on the yes.
Ah, I love it.
Where can
Nice spot there for the winding up the
yeah, it's
episode.
all
I love it.
every once in a while I get a professional one in.
Ah,
So Jason, where can people catch up with you? Calicube, KALICUBE. We'll do the links and everything, but
yeah, calicube.com. But if you want to engage with me, find my content, just search my name, Jason Barnard, on Google, on ChatGPT, on Perplexity. When DeepSeek came out, people were freaking out. First thing I did was ask it, who is Jason Barnard? And it got the answer completely right
mm,
and said I was wonderful. So all of these machines work the same way. This process works exactly the same way for all of these machines and functions equally well for all of them. And so I can now confidently say to people, you want to engage with me, find my content, learn more about me, learn about how I can help you, learn about how we can help you for free on Calicube. Just ask ChatGPT or ask Perplexity and they will tell you.
mm. One quick question: is there any benefit to talking with those AI systems about yourself or about the topic that
No.
you are attempting to get, like, to have it search, a little bit harder? No,
No, well, the thing is, when you talk to ChatGPT, it's locked within your little
I see.
universe. And the wider world within ChatGPT doesn't get that information.
It's
Theoretically, we
not
don't know.
learning anything from me.
No. So there are some people who have told me, oh, one neat trick for generative engine optimization is to talk to it about yourself and tell it lovely things about yourself. But it's not. It's closed in its little in your little corner of the web. The other thing is, if you ask it about yourself and you're logged in, it will tell you about you. That isn't an honest representation of what everybody else is
I see.
seeing, and that's something to be very wary of.
Mm, okay.
So you might search your name and it'll say, oh, everything about you. But that's because you've told it everything about you and it's got the information in its little brain. But then if you ask it without logging in, because it hasn't expanded beyond the micro universe of your account, it won't be able to tell you about yourself.
I got it.
So it can't tell your audience about you.
Appreciate you, Jason. Thank you so much. Enjoy France.
Ah,
Hopefully you guys continue to get good weather out there. And if you're ever on our side of the pond, let me know, man. We'd love to catch up.
brilliant. Absolutely. Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Alex.
Jason.